Oh, YouTube, it's your boy Steve from the Valley Garage, and today I'm going to show you tips and tricks how to adjust your rear suspension on your Fury using the stock shock. I'm talking rebound, I'm talking preload, I'm talking what's the difference. Tips, tricks, and everything in between. Cue the intro. Okay, so to properly adjust your rear suspension on your Fury, you're going to need to take a couple of measurements, 3 in total. In order to take the measurements, you're going to need a fixed point on the fender and then halfway on the rear axle. The best way to help you do that is you take a little piece of tape and tape it on the bottom lip of the rear fender. You want to try to pick a point that's right above the rear axle and go straight up. If you're a little off, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be that accurate, but obviously you want to be above the axle as best as possible. So the 3 measurements that you have to take are A, B, and C. A is going to be a measurement taken of the swing arm at rest with the entire weight of the motorcycle lifted up. The best way to do that is with a bike jack. If you don't have a bike jack, you could possibly use a car jack, a piece of wood. You just have to get the weight up off. The second measurement is measurement B, the way the bike is sitting right now. It's static load. Right? Static load. It's static, it's not moving. The distance naturally with the natural weight of the motorcycle on the rear shock. That's measurement B. Measurement C, number 3, is going to be your weight on the bike with either your passenger, with your luggage. The weight that is going to be on the bike for final measurement needs to be what you typically drive around with. I'm a solo rider. Right? So the measurement would be with just me sitting on it. If you have a passenger or if you wear a lot of gear, however you normally operate the motorcycle, all of that has to be factored in when you're adjusting your rear shock. So with those 3 measurements, then we can kind of play with some numbers and figure it out. So speaking of measurements, you're going to need a measuring tape. This is in inches. If you have a metric one, that's better. You want to be as accurate as possible with your measurements, so millimeters is the way to go. You can certainly use inches and just say, hey, how many inches is this in millimeters on your phone, Siri, wherever. They'll do the calculation for you. Just to write those numbers down. So for convenience sake, millimeters would be the best, but we're going to use inches as well while we measure. As you're measuring, you cannot physically be on the motorcycle with all of your weight and your passenger and successfully measure halfway from the axle to the fixed point on the fender. Which brings me to my other point. You need somebody with you. Bring your kid, bring your wife, bring somebody. You need somebody to take the measurements whilst your normal load is on the motorcycle. Ideally, if you had 3 people, 1 person to hold the bike up completely, you being the individual and your partner or whoever, your kid, your niece, your nephew, your dog, to be on the bike with your feet up on the pegs as your first person's holding it, and then you have your third person taking the measurements. That would be ideal situation. You could try to do this by yourself. It'd just be, difficult, but you can get creative and figure it out on your own. For me, I'm going to use my brother to help hold the bike up or take the measurements, for example. Now, when it comes to adjusting your rear suspension, there are 2 variables. There is your preload, and then the other measurement or the other factor of your shock would be the dampening or the rebound. Think of preload or a sag, the distance set with all of your weight on the bike to give you that space. If you got a lot of weight, you're going to need more distance on the shock though. Lift it up because all that weight, push it right back down. There's a specific distance that you need to get to, which is 30 to 40 millimeters, which is about 1.25 to 2 inches. That's with your weight and everybody on it. Whereas dampening or rebound is more of a subjective adjustment variable. It's more specific to you and how you like the ride. The best way to look at dampening is the rate of speed of the shock going down. Now, if your dampening is too soft and you're going on the highway, you're gonna go boom, 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 boom. If the dampening's too hard and then you hit the lines on the highway, you're gonna go boom, boom. And then it might be getting punched in the tank, the stupid ass seat, you're going up, oh. If it's too soft, you go up and down, up and down. That's subjective. You tweak that as you typically ride. But preload is the main measurement that we're trying to get after. How much shock or adjustment we need to raise or lower the shock to accommodate the weight of you and whoever else is putting on the bike. On your stock Fury, if you pull this right-hand side cover off, you're going to see this little knob. And this knob plays an important role in adjusting your preload suspension. Because I have air ride, I took my shock out. Your preload adjusting knob should be right around this area, right here. If you weren't sure what this was, there's gonna be two measurements on here, high and low. I'll show you what I mean. With the knob, turn all the way counterclockwise. The top of the shock to the bottom base is 6 inches. If I turn the knob in the clockwise position, going. As I'm doing this, it's actually raising and expanding. The measurement is about 6.5 inches. So by turning the knob, you can adjust the ride height of the Fury up and down about 1/2 inch. Ride height alone has nothing to do with the quality of the ride and how well the shock will perform as you're going over the bumps, the hills, through the valley, to wherever you're going. So if you turn this knob and you're not sure where it was or how you're supposed to be, fear not, you can always adjust back to your factory setting. And your factory setting is 6 clicks from the lowest setting. So no matter where you are, just pop your cover off, take the knob, and you're going to go in a counterclockwise position all the way till the knob itself doesn't click anymore. Okay, so stock setting is 6 clicks from its lowest. So turn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 clicks. I am now set the preload to the factory settings of where the shock came from Honda. That's preload. The next adjustment you can do is dampening. The dampening is the speed on how the shock compresses up and down. If I'm saying things over and over again, it's because I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. The stock rebound dampening setting is 3/4 away from maximum. So you take your flathead, you turn it to high, all the way around towards the H counterclockwise till it can't turn anymore. You'll notice there's a small pinhole on the bottom. It's probably impossible to see on camera, but there it is. And there is another hole punch stamped into the silver itself. And you're gonna turn counterclockwise until this dot goes all the way around once and meets that other dot on there. You wanna have the 2 dots meet. Preload is 6 clicks from the lowest. Your dampening is 3/4 of a turn from its highest. Now the shock is at factory settings. You can start to take your measurements. Again, this is for a baseline. You bought the bike used, you don't know where the settings are, or if you're not sure on where to go, start from standard, start from the stock settings, and then you can adjust and move from there. Now that we have that set, we need to get the bike up on the jack. I need to take a measurement from the swing arm at rest to the top of the fender. You want to raise it just enough so the tire is off the ground. I have air ride. I don't have the stock shock. My numbers will be different from yours. You cannot use my numbers. But as an example's sake, this is how we're doing it. Bike is off the ground. The swing arm is rest at its lowest point with no weight on it. First measurement, I'm gonna go from halfway of the axle up to my tape mark. Okay, I'm looking at 14.5 inches. So that's gonna be my measurement A. Measurement B is your static distance. That's gonna be the weight of the bike just naturally sitting on the shock itself. Most importantly, you wanna set the sag for your shock, okay? So now that your bike is back on the ground, don't just immediately start to take the measurement. You sit on the bike, you wanna exercise the shock up and down. You wanna find that medium, just in case if it's stuck or tweaked in a specific way. So now I'm sitting on my bike, you're gonna hop, figure out where it is. Good, now it's exercise, you got that uptake taken out. Carefully come off your bike, put it on the kickstand, all right? So I'm gonna recap as we go along. 1, lifted the bike up, got it off the ground, got the first measurement, measurement A. Then put it back down on the ground, bounce up and down a little bit to find that happy medium of the shock. We're gonna go for measurement 2, static sag. A good static sag is 5 to 10 millimeters on your shock. That equals about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. Now, this isn't so important in terms of you riding the motorcycle because that is what's handled with preload, but between full extension and static sag with the weight of the bike on, the measurement again is 5 to 10 millimeters to 1/4 to 1/2 an inch. If you bought your Fury used, the spring weakens over time as it's going up and down. This is why they give you a 5 to 10 millimeter or 1/4 to 1/2 inch distance. We'll take our second reading. Same thing, right? Halfway the axle, up here. I am 14.25. So I'm right within that limit of quarter inch to 1/2 inch margin, right in the middle. This is good, at least for me. Again, you can't go by my 14 numbers, but I'm using this as an example. But test your own. From the weight off to the weight on, you want to look at 1/4 to 1/2 inch. If you're there, or if you're just a little off to the side, it means that your shock is healthy enough. It's not abused. It's not all too beat up. There's plenty of life left in it. All right? So now we're gonna do our third reading. And in this instance, I gotta have my brother, he can take the measurement.
Your measurement is now 13 inches.
13 inches.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Okay, so what you want to have for your distance from when there was no weight on the bike itself, measurement A, for me was 14.5, to when you're sitting on the bike, which is measurement C, which my brother just read was 13 inches. The distance to make sure you have proper preload is you want to have at least inch and 1/4 to about 2 inches in terms of my weight on the bike with my normal riding gear. I am 13 inches. I started with 14.5. So that is 1.5 inches difference. I'm right in the line between 1 inch to 2 inches. For you guys though, if you're off a little bit, all you have to do is turn the big knob to go higher or lower, and you make those proper adjustments until you're right about in the middle. In review, the 3 measurements are A, the distance of the bike with no weight on it. Measurement B, the static sag, the weight of the bike naturally the way that it is, distance from the middle of the axle to the top of the fender. Measurement C, your weight as the rider, the passenger, or whoever's riding on it, that distance. In terms of preload, you want to take the distance with no weight on it, measurement A, and you want to subtract measurement C, your weight on the bike as is in an upright position with all of your gear and equipment, your passengers, or however you typically normally ride your bike. And you want to have between 1 inch to 2 inches. If you're within that ballpark, your preload is set proper for your motorcycle. If you're more on the lower side, you got to raise it up a bit, right? So you want to take that big knob and you want to turn it clockwise and raise up the shock. And you're more on the 2 inch line, you want to take that knob and turn it counterclockwise so you bring the bike back down. Ideally, 1.5 inches, you're good. You're right in the middle. That is how you properly set your preload suspension for your bike. Second part of this is the dampening. This is where I mean it's subjective. It's how fast or how comfortable do you feel on your bike going over the highway bumps of the road, or maybe if you have a local area where your road is uneven, how well does the bike handle? If it's going up and down too fast, it means it's too soft and you want to harden up the line so it's a little bit more flow. You don't want to bounce like a jackhammer. You want to easily ride the suspension through. In order to make your adjustments, take your flathead screwdriver and do one full rotation. Go for a ride. You have to go for a ride. Do you like the way that it feels? Is it too hard? Is it too soft? Turn it again in one full direction or turn back. It might take a while for you to kind of dial in and tweak, but most importantly, the best way you can get out of the most performance of your shock is the preload. That's today's episode. I really hope I did a good job on trying to do this. I had to do a little research myself to get you the best information possible for your bike, but at least it's nice to see the shock out of the bike so you have a better idea when looking at your preload knob and your dampening. Most important to handle the proper weight of your load that you're normally going to be pushing onto the shock itself, and the dampening part where it's going to be the quality of the ride or maybe the comfort, how well you feel you need to bounce up and down while you're riding on the road. All right, don't hesitate to ask any questions. Leave a comment. I'm here to help. All I want to do is help, right? I want to share my passion with my bikes with everybody else. I hope this is a good way to give you a little bit of insight and help you get a little bit more comfortable with your bike. A little bit more knowledge. Maybe you knew any of all this stuff. Maybe you didn't. It's not for me to judge. The motorcycle community is one of the best communities to be a part of. And what more is it to be sharing this fantastic platform of a wonderful bike that Honda produced and made. And I don't know what my life would be without bikes. That's why I have 8. But that's me. That's what I'm all about, all right? Keep ripping. Enjoy that preload. Love that dampening. Be humble. Be friendly. Enjoy the road. All right? Peace!